Welcome to our Memorial Day programming. Memorial Day was originally called Decoration Day, when Americans took time and decorated with flowers the graves of soldiers who gave their lives in the Civil War. Today's national holiday of Memorial Day honors all of the fallen American military members. During Memorial Day, I invite you to solemnly reflect on those who made the ultimate sacrifice. Reflect on those who find the strength to continue after the death of their loved ones, our Gold Star mothers and their families. For they have learned the true meaning of service and sacrifice. They are an example of strength, of the strength of our country, and inspire us with their courage every day. John F. Kennedy said it best, a World War II Navy veteran and 35th president. The cost of freedom is always high, but Americans have always paid it. And one path we shall never choose, and that is the path of surrender or submission. It is for us the living not to surrender, but to endure and remember. Let us honor their sacrifice from which our freedom flows together as a community and never forget. Memorial Day is a special holiday amongst all of our nation's holidays in that we don't come together to celebrate, but rather to consecrate and honor all of those service members that throughout history have fallen. In our Memorial Day programming, I have selected to read the Gettysburg Address and General Logan's orders because they embody the true spirit of Memorial Day. Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this great continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we're engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation, so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people shall not perish from the earth. Memorial Day Order. Headquarters of the Grand Army of the Republic, Washington, D.C., May 5th, 1868. General Orders, Number 11. The 30th of May, 1868, is designated for the purpose of strewing with flowers or otherwise decorating the graves of comrades who died in defense of their country during the late rebellion, and those whose bodies now lie in almost every city, village, and hamlet churchyard in the land. In this observance, no form or ceremony is prescribed, but posts and comrades will in their own way arrange such fitting services and testimonials of respect as circumstances may permit. We are organized comrades as our regulations tell us, for the purpose, among other things, of preserving and strengthening those kind and fraternal feelings which have bound together the soldiers sailors, and Marines who united to suppress the late rebellion. What can aid more to assure this result than by cherishing tenderly the memory of our heroic dead who made their breasts a barricade between our country and its foes? Their soldier lives where the rebellion of freedom to a race in chains, and their deaths the tattoo of rebellious tyranny in arms. We should guard their graves with sacred vigilance. All that the consecrated wealth and taste of the nation can add to their adornment and security is but a fitting tribute to the memory of her slain defenders. Let no wanton foot tread rudely on such hallowed grounds. Let pleasant paths invite the coming and going of reverent visitors and fond mourners. Let no vandalism or avarice or neglect, no ravages of time testify to the present or to the coming generations that we have forgotten as people the cost of a free and undivided republic. If other eyes grow dull and other hands slack and other hearts cold in the solemn trust, ours shall keep it well as long as the light and warmth of life remains in us. Let us then, at the time appointed, gather around their sacred remains and garland the passionless mounds above them with the choicest flowers of springtime. Let us raise above them the dear old flag they saved from dishonor. Let us in this solemn presence renew our pledges to aid and assist those whom they have left among us as sacred charges upon the nation's gratitude, the soldiers and sailors, widow and orphan. It is the purpose of the Commander-in-Chief to inaugurate this observance with the hope that it will be kept up year to year. Department comrades will use every effort to make this order effective. By command of John A. Logan, Commander-in-Chief.
We just want to say happy Memorial Day to all of the families of those who have served, those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. Memorial Day really is a day of remembrance, honoring people throughout our history who've answered the call of duty, who've gone to far-off lands and given of themselves. And you know, it says a lot about a community, I think, about who it chooses to memorialize. And I'm very proud of the fact that Worcester has many veterans memorials, veterans squares, honoring the sacrifice of veterans from all of our conflicts, from the beginning of our country up until Afghanistan and Iraq. So it really is important for the people of Worcester to appreciate all of that sacrifice, all the men and women who've answered the call of duty. Memorial Day is our solemn responsibility to remember those people who served and sacrificed and their families. Worcester does that always and will continue, even in this unique time where we have to do it virtually. I know there are families across the city who in their own way are appreciating, remembering, and honoring the sacrifice of our veterans. Thank you to all of them and to all of their families.
Thank you for joining me for the most unusual Memorial Day remembrance here at Hope Cemetery. We usually do the Civil War Memorial every year. As we remember our veterans who have made the supreme sacrifice, but let's not forget those veterans who have recently succumbed to the COVID-19 virus. This has taken far too many of the greatest generation. Memorial Day has a long tradition dating back to the Civil War, where widows begin to decorate the graves of the fallen. Today we remember the fallen of every war. We remember those who gave their lives on Cemetery Ridge and Hacksaw Ridge. Remember the veterans who have made the supreme sacrifice at the frozen chosen Khe Sanh and Kandahar. These veterans have comrades who are still alive and who remember their buddies taking the bell during the prime of their lives. We remember these young men and women, some just out of high school, who died in battle, forever frozen in time. To the families left behind, they are forever young. Just a couple weeks ago, we celebrated the 75th anniversary of the end of the war in Europe during World War II, VE Day. The anniversary was lost because of our recent struggles. let us be reminded of the end of the hostilities in Europe today. Let us also remember the upcoming VJ Day, which marked the end of the war in the Pacific, and all those whose sacrifices helped keep us free. Our city is dotted by granite markers, whose sole purpose is to remember those who have fallen and to remind us of the cost of war. Many of these silent centennials are in the neighborhoods of the fallen. We are a city that remembers, so today let us once again pause and remember. Thank you.
I'd like to take a moment to thank those who served and those who are currently serving, as well as anyone who's lost a loved one in service. We're humbled by your sacrifice, your courage, and your strength. Memorial Day is a day where we honor those members of our military who paid the ultimate sacrifice, and we thank them today and every day for creating a foundation for our freedom. Even in times like this, amidst a pandemic, we're going to continue to respect and care and show the compassion for those individuals behind us and those individuals that we're going to appreciate today. And I hope you all keep our military men and women and the sacrifices they made close to your hearts today and every day.
I'm a Korean War vet. I went to see a movie from the halls of Montezuma when I was 5 years old, and I decided it was going to be one of those. I didn't even know what those were. It was just that I was going to do my part. Because I decided that a long time ago. And then when I was 19, I joined. We owe all those who were in Korea. It's such an honor to be here to commemorate all they have done for us. Memorial Day is a very, very great day of remembrance for all that was given to us. A great remembrance for all veterans. It's touching, I think, to every veteran.
We're going to place a wreath today. It's a big memorial. It's a beautiful memorial. I mean, it's kept up by the city, which we appreciate the utmost, that they take care of it for us. We really appreciate it. You know, we would have forgotten people like Korea when we come back. Nobody liked us. For some reason, they thought we weren't worthy to be called veterans, I guess. But now we are. We always knew that we were, and we just want to make sure that they're always remembered and never forgotten. It's important to us because we were there. We're living history. We tell people all the time, we bring kids up here to let them know exactly what happened. And we tell them in no certain language that this is what happened, you know. And we don't hold anything back. And it's important to us that they're remembered because we are their voice. They don't have a voice anymore, but we are their voice. It's all the same. Every war is the same. There's always those young guys that go there to serve their country and they perish. But there's nothing much you can do about it. We hope that these people will be remembered. Present arms. Order arms. Thank you.
So what happened was a few years ago, somebody notified Chief Sargent about there was a neglect in some of the graves in the city being covered. It wasn't done intentionally. It was just that all the Korean War vets and World War II vets were getting too old and they couldn't make it where they could place the flag. Some of it's hills. So So we, as a group, we got together. We said, let's adopt the cemetery. We had a couple other veteran groups adopt some of the other ones. We said we'll adopt this one for the Worcester Police Department. The city provides us 5,000 flags, and every year, probably for the last 5 or 6 years, we grab probably about 50 or 60 Worcester police officers, family, and friends, and they come here on usually Armed Forces Day. Come at 8 in the morning. It takes us a couple hours, and we put out all 5,000 flags. And it's nice to see that there's so many children that come here because, in 20 years, I'll be too old. And by that time, I'll be in my 70s, so it's a little bit easier now seeing these kids, and hopefully they carry the flag and continue this tradition as we move forward. This at least gives children an inside look as to, who sacrificed, who served, and why are we actually here. The Worcester Police, we get a whole group of volunteers every year. We try and promote community policing, and this is just one aspect that helps us in the community.
Good afternoon, everyone. This year we have the water ceremony, but it's going to be a little shorter, a little cut short due to the COVID-19 outbreak, pandemic. With me today is Dee Dively, to my right, Carol Elliott, 2 young ladies. Yeah, Casey Pulaski way down there with the bandit mask on, and Harold Pierce. They're going to throw the wreaths in today. And the water ceremony is basically for those people who died at sea. And unfortunately, in the service, you got sailors, soldiers, airmen who all die at sea. It's tragic. Some of the in World War II, those kamikazes and stuff like that, you see the shows and you just can't believe it, how it is. But we'll never forget them. Hopefully not, but I don't know about the future, but right now we won't, as long as we got a breath in us, in our body. So if Miss Elliott will throw her wreath in honor of her husband, Francis Julian Elliott, Jr.
U.S. Navy.
U.S. Navy.
So just throw?
Yes, throw, and then, thank you. Harold Pierce, now we'll throw it in he was in the first cav, he's throwing it in to all the Vietnam veterans who died at sea. Thank you, Harold. Casey Pulaski will cast his flowers upon the water in honor of Michael Costigian, United States Navy, who perished at sea. Thank you, and that concludes the big ceremony today, but one thing we can give him is a salute. Ready? Present arms. Order arms. That concludes the ceremony for today. Dee will say a few words after about this bridge.
On Memorial Day 1980, Worcester Telegram and Gazette reporter Jack Tolbert wrote about the Elm Park ceremonies, recalling this article, "A touching memorial with a history of its own." With your indulgence, here are some excerpts from that article. Forget-me-nots on the water. Lilacs adrift in Elm Park Lagoon. Do flowers still float there on Memorial Sunday? Yes, thanks to the Disabled American Veterans, Chapter 4, carrying the torch for one of the city's most stirring tribute to the war dead. always the Sunday before Memorial Day, like today. For more than half a century, the Dramatic Water Service was given tender, loving care by the dear and now departed original band of ladies of the Grand Army of the Republic. In 1961, the last of the frail and graying members of the GAR, General Charles Devon Circle, gathered. They were mostly daughters and granddaughters of Civil War veterans. Who follows them now in their footsteps? Who picks up the banner? Who brings the flowers? Take a moment. Come to the park today and see. Sailors and Marines who died in battle were the ones specifically honored dearly by the GAR to show their devotions. Remember the little lady who made it all happen, Mrs. Horgan, Mrs. Harriet M. Horgan, past state chairman of the ladies of the GAR. She lived for the Memorial Sunday service. Her father, Gardner L. Runblett, had marched from Maine to the Civil War service in 1861 when President Lincoln called for volunteers to save the nation. The Reverend R.B. Stratton, pastor of the Old South Church, spoke here on Worcester's first Memorial Day, 30th of May, 1868. Scars of the Civil War were fresh and hurting still that day. We cannot see them, the Reverend said, as by bivouac lamp they penned the last letter home, or, march worn, they lie down to die. Mingle gladness with your tears. He was yours, but he is now the nation's. He was yours. He is ours. A gentle closing line from that first Memorial Day in Worcester lives for the fallen of all wars. He died to a family that he may live to a nation. Today, May 24th, 2020, this ceremony continues to be celebrated by the Disabled American Veterans Chapter 4 and the other veterans organizations that comprise your Worcester Vets Council. Mrs. Harriet Horgan in 1966 and this bridge, rebuilt in 1970 and again in 2015, is appropriately named for her. Thank you.
So here we sit today in the ceremonial area. I think it's high time that we recognize these veterans from World War I. So here we are getting around to recognizing the contributions and the sacrifices of the World War I veterans of Worcester, just Worcester, that are represented on these poles and these nameplates behind us. So this grove was built in 1928 by American Legion Post number 5. Each tree that was planted for a veteran who died, and each tree in 1928 had a bronze plaque attached to it with the soldier's name, and those bronze plaques have long since disappeared. Back in the 60s, they disappeared. And this was commonly used for all the Memorial Day celebrations for years and years and years, but it fell into disrepair. And right where I'm sitting, behind me, was the Foothills Theater built a whole set of bleachers to actually have presentations up here. They did Shakespeare in the Park right here. That stand eventually eroded and fell apart, and that's part of what we had to remove to get all of this new ceremonial area built. It actually began 7 or 8 years ago when I was walking through the park one day following a huge snowstorm, and I looked into the grove, this grove of trees behind us, and I noticed that the trees were all arranged strictly in a beautiful layout like a military cemetery. And I realized that the 100th anniversary of the end of the war was coming, and I decided that we needed to renovate Memorial Grove and bring it back to its glory in honor of the people who died for this war. So the people who really died for Memorial Grove, they were all residents of Worcester. Some were immigrants, some were first-time children of the immigrants that moved in, and most of them were drafted. All but 2 were men. There's 2 ladies that died here. They were nurses and dietitian aides. And there's 272 official people with the state. But when we add all the casualty lists together, we came up with 353 people, and they're all represented here on nameplates on these poles. So we started with the Sheriff's Department Community Services Division, and we cleared out the forest that had grown in between all of these trees. It took probably a year and a half to do that using the Sheriff's Department as volunteers. And then we could count the trees that were missing, and we had 120 plus missing trees. So we recruited local organizations like the Worcester Tree Initiative, Massachusetts DCR, a few local charities like the Schwartz Community Foundation, and we did a lot of writing for raise funds, and we eventually planted over 120 trees to replace the missing trees. And then we found a local professor, Associate Professor Stephen Von Dessels from WPI, who actually designed the area that we're sitting in. And he designed it with these steel posts that are made to rust to represent a 100-year-old memorial. And he did it free, and there were so many volunteers involved with this that I literally cannot name all of them. But the #1 best volunteer was probably the Worcester Technical School, who made all the nameplates on all the posts behind us. They were all engraved steel. They were all beautifully done. It took hundreds and hundreds of hours to make them. They made us ceremonial coins to give to the people at the opening ceremony. And they did it all with love and grace and gratitude because they are in the park and they wanted to give back to the park. We have several hundred trees, all on 30-foot centers, 30-foot rows, designed just like a military cemetery to represent the crosses in the cemetery. The ceremonial area, made by the professor, has 472 steel poles. Each pole represents one of the soldiers or sailors or Marines or civilians who died from Worcester. And each pole has a 2-foot-long nameplate, engraved nameplate welded to it. So that if you walk up to a pole, you'll see a nameplate, you'll see a name with their date of birth and their date of death. When you look at this from the sky, like if you were up there in a drone, the arrangement of the poles is such that it's shaped like 2 hands coming together in love, 2 hands coming together. And we are really sitting on the only original part of the memorial right here. This wall was built in 1928. It's been repaired by the city, but it was originally built in 28. And this is the only part of the original memorial, with the exception of the arch down at the beginning of the street. There's an archway that was also here in 1928 that was refurbished. So there's really very little of the original memorial here, but it's all designed so that when you walk from the end of the street up, you pass under the arch. You'll see a few beautiful plaques down here commemorating this archway, this whole grove, and you actually enter where all the trees are. And that's supposed to be a spot of peace and quiet and remembrance. We hope to flower that whole grove at some point, plant flowers all over, nice flowering bushes. That's still in the future. We're still working on this memorial. We probably will be for several years to go. So Memorial Day is a day set aside for the veterans of the United States who have passed on. It's a day to commemorate their memory, to give them some honor, and it reflects upon the people who are still in the service today and still alive. Look at how their ancestors and their predecessors are being treated on Memorial Day, and it gives them a great feeling. Whenever I see anyone in uniform on Memorial Day or anywhere near to Memorial Day, I buy their lunch, I buy their dinners. It's the way veterans should be treated. They are the people who have held this country up against scores of enemies over the years. So Memorial Day is really important to say thank you to them.
Hello, I'm Anthony Riello, Director of the Worcester Vet Center. And on behalf of the team here, I wanted to take a moment to honor the memory of every veteran, past and present, who dedicated their lives to selfless service. The integrity and loyalty that they embody is comparable to very few, and the indelible mark they've made on our community, country, and indeed the world will not go unremembered. We memorialize their sacrifices on this day, and we also commemorate the sacrifices made by family members and loved ones who held their veterans so dearly. The mental health and well-being of our veterans is the main focus of the Worcester Vet Center. And if you find you are in need of our services, we ask you to call 508-753-7902 for help. I'd like to leave you with a quote by author Thomas Campbell on this Memorial Day. "To live in the hearts we leave behind is not to die." From all of the staff here at the Worcester Vet Center, thank you and be well.
Hello everyone, I'm State Representative David LaBeouf from the 17th Worcester District. This Memorial Day weekend, I hope you take a moment to remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice for the freedoms that we enjoy in our country and for the betterment of everyone in our communities. The best way to honor those who gave their lives is to make sure that we support our veterans here at home. I hope you have a great rest of the weekend and that your family is safe and well.
I spend most Memorial Days at Worcester's Vietnam Memorial, alongside veterans and other members of our community, to mourn the loss of those who made the ultimate sacrifice to their country. But this year is different. This year we are celebrating Memorial Day and remembering those sacrifices from home. This is how so many other families who have lost a loved one spend Memorial Day every year. At home with their families, or maybe alone and in silence. This year, we are all at a distance from one another. But in days like today, when we take the time to stop and remember those we've lost, we can come together, even at a distance, close in our hearts. Thank you to all the service members who have sacrificed themselves for our country. Freedom is not free, and you know it better than anyone. And this year especially, thank you to all of the essential workers and National Guardsmen who have put their lives at risk fighting a new enemy. Thank you. Thank you for keeping us free.
Hi, this is City Councilor at Large Mo Bergman. Wanted to wish all the residents of the City of Worcester a meaningful Memorial Day. I'm often reminded when we think about this ultimate sacrifice the men and women have given for our freedoms. A particular quote by President Franklin Roosevelt that goes as follows: "Those who have long enjoyed such privileges as we enjoy forget in time that men have died to win those freedoms." Have a meaningful Memorial Day.
Hi, Donna Calorio, Worcester City Council. Thank you to all the brave men and women who have made the ultimate sacrifice. On Memorial Day, we express our gratitude to our fallen heroes and pay homage to those that have given us our freedom. Happy Memorial Day from the bottom of my heart, from my family to yours.
Hi, Candy Merrow Carlson, District 2 City Councilor, Worcester, Mass. Today, I want to honor all the men and women who have served and paid the ultimate sacrifice. You will not be forgotten.
Hi, I'm Worcester City Councilor Gary Rosen. This year, Memorial Day observances across the country won't be like those before COVID-19. However, this solemn holiday remains one on which we remember and honor the 1.3 million sons, daughters, mothers, and fathers who have died in our many wars since the birth of our country in 1775. Because of the ultimate sacrifice made by these fallen heroes, today all of us are free. To all our veterans of America's armed forces, thank you for your service And to all Worcester residents, stay healthy and safe.
Hi, this is City Councilor George Russell wishing you and your family a happy Memorial Day with a special attention to our military families who have given so much for our freedom. I want you to know that even in these hard times of COVID-19 and all these home quarantines and everything else, that all of us at City Hall are still working hard on your behalf. And if I could ever be of assistance to you, like all the councilors, please don't hesitate to pick up the phone and call myself or any one of my colleagues. And again, happy Memorial Day.
Hi, this is City Councilor Kate Toomey sending Memorial Day greetings to you, along with my colleagues on this Memorial Day Monday, May 25th, 2020. Unusual circumstances that we're not able to join together, but nonetheless, we still remember those who have given the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms. So just please know that you'll always be remembered, your family and your loved ones. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I am here at the Vietnam Soldier Memorial in East Park for Corporal Paul Bellino. With me are Margaret Oliveri and Marian Oliveri Melconian, family members. We thank the men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice, who gave their life, our fallen heroes. Please stop by one of our many memorials throughout our city. Share a moment of respect, honor them, be proud for them. Make this Memorial Day a meaningful day. Raise your flags.
Memorial Day is a day for us all to remember those men and women who valiantly fought and lost their lives for our country. Those men and women who sacrificed everything for us to be here today. So on behalf of myself and my family, I just want to say thank you, not just on this Memorial Day, but every day. Stay safe and God bless.
For many, Memorial Day has come to mean the beginning of summer and a holiday to gather around family and friends. However, happiness and freedom are a product of the real cause for this holiday. Memorial Day is a time to remember that the American way of life is not cheap, but rather has been purchased by the lives and the blood of so many who sacrificed for us to live free. I'd like to share with you this poem, and the poem is entitled, To Them We Owe. Happened today and in the past, sacrifice made for ours to last. Wives to widows, families torn, gave their lives, for them we mourn. Gone forever, souls are lost, freedom comes with this cost. Enjoy the life they did preserve. Faith they suffered did not deserve. On this day, lest we forget, for them we owe our life in debt. Again, thank you. And on Memorial Day, please take a moment to remember those brave men and women who fought and died to preserve peace for all of us. This is John Monfredo wishing everyone a very happy Memorial Day.
I'm Worcester School Committee member Tracy O'Connell-Novick. On this Memorial Day, as we had renewed appreciation for those who give so much to us in service, I wish you and your family all of the very best.